No, not at this stage. So, afternoon everybody, thanks for being here. Very impromptu conversation today. I'm John, or Dr. Teh, and I work at a clinic in Brisbane, Wilston, called Plant Med. So Plant Med is a medical cannabis clinic, so our doctors will help you work out what your problems are. Well, you probably already know what your problems are, but they'll help you find out what your problems are and how we can use cannabis medicine to help fix them, help you make you feel better. So we can do video consults Australia-wide as well. That's not a problem these days since COVID's come on, telemed's really normal. So, yeah, so there's a few clinics around at the moment. Can I Help is another one. Everyone's got their own slightly different take on things. At Plant Med, we're pretty directed at the health side of things. So we're not just about making a sale and getting some flour out there, or and see you later. Here's 5 minutes, give us $100, see you later. No, we like to take a bit more time and spend that time with you to work out what we need to do, how we can best integrate cannabis. Have you used cannabis before? What are the potential side effects? What drugs are you taking and how can they fit in? So I haven't really got much of a conversation, much of a direction today. It's really designed as a question and answer talk. So I know there's only a few people here. Does anyone have any questions to start with? Bowel cancer. Okay, yeah. And is there any distant spread of that cancer, or was it all the cancer? Yes. Okay, yep. Yes. Yes. Okay, so I'll just repeat that question for everyone else sitting around. The question was, how can we use cannabis for bowel cancer? We had a friend or someone you cared for has bowel cancer. They had the tumour chopped out with a big chunk of bowel. There wasn't any spread outside of the bowel, which is a good sign. A little bit of lymphatic spread, okay. Yep. Okay, so there was 7 of 15 lymph nodes, so the cancer had spread. So cannabis and cancer is an interesting area, and in Australia we haven't got any proof, or no one in the world does actually, got any proof that cannabis can cure cancer. Okay, so anyone that tells you they've got a cure for cancer, well, they must have a very long line out their door. Okay, so there's no evidence that says we can cure cancer this much % of the time if we have this amount of cannabis. That doesn't exist. There are some studies which show that there are potentially very beneficial effects of cannabis in cancer. So in Australia at the moment we use cannabis symptomatically for cancer. So if you're having chemotherapy, if you've got pain associated with that, if you've got nausea, if your appetite's down, if you can't sleep and you're stressed out, all of these things are useful for treating with cannabis to relieve those symptoms. So we call that symptomatic relief, and that's only very common in Australia at the moment. It was one of the first things that cannabis was used for legally in Australia, I suppose. So chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting is a thing which cannabis is very useful, helps reduce that. But we're talking about more than that in this case, okay? So that will be something which anyone with cancer could do in Australia. They'd be legally able to do that. Just go and see your doctor and you get some scripts to assist with your symptoms of cancer disease. Now, there are some people in the world, lots of people in the world, that have used cannabis in a different way to help cure their cancer, which is what I think the intent of your friend or colleague is here. So cannabinoids and the endocannabinoid system are really, really interesting medicines, and they work in our bodies in a very, very interesting way. Very importantly, the immune system and the inflammation system in our bodies is is intimately connected with the endocannabinoid system, and this cannabis system in our bodies helps direct those immune cells and those inflammatory cells to do their work. And there's a lot of thought that perhaps THC in significant dosing can help cause apoptosis, which is a fancy word meaning designed cell death. So breaking down these cancer cells on purpose by your body and eating up all the little bits that are left over with your immune system and your inflammatory cells and getting rid of that cancer. So programmed cell death. And CBD has also been shown in animal studies especially, and some human studies are coming out indicating that CBD may help limit the spread of cancer, meaning it may help stop it going further from the site of where it came from, so that in this case bowel cancer. So when I help people treat themselves, which is what's happening, your body is still doing all the work to treat themselves for cancer, I will suggest a few things. One of them is cannabis medicine, and if the person wants to do that, what we do is we take the cannabis levels very high, okay? So maybe, just say, for example, we might use 10 or 15 milligrams of cannabis, THC and CBD, just to make you feel good, to get rid of a little bit of pain, to get rid of a bit of appetite, help with nausea, symptomatic relief. We take, what you do with the cancer treatment is you take that dosing to much higher levels. And I personally aim at about 250 milligrams a day of mixed cannabinoids, meaning CBD and THC half-half. Okay, so 125 of both. So that's probably about, say, 10 or 15 times higher than that original dose. Okay. So it depends on the strength of the drops that you've got. If you got them from here, there are different varieties. So you need to ask the dispensary staff how many milligrams per drop or how many milligrams per milliliter of this oil that you've given me is THC and how much is CBD. Okay, so I know that here at the Hemp Embassy they do have capsules of strong doses. Okay, so we're talking of that 500 milligram dose or even higher, I believe. Yeah, so but you don't want to go straight to that dose. Okay, so you want to start very, very low. And especially if you've never taken cannabis before, you want to let your body get used to it. If you took one of those strong 500 milligram capsules, which is 250 to 500 is where I aim, then without training for it, as it were, you'd be on the ground, okay? You wouldn't be able to get out of bed. You might be there for a day or so. And you might get quite panicky as well. So that will be considered an overdose, you know. But if we take our time and every 5 days to a week, we slowly increase the number of drops. And we put most of those drops at night time, and we make sure we at least balance the CBD with the THC, so half-half. We just keep moving that dose up. And when you get to about, I say my line in the sense, 250 milligrams, some people's 500, some people's 1,000. Depends where you're sourcing your medicine from, but a significant amount. You'll find that you've tolerated by that point and you won't actually be really tired all the time. You'll be a little tired, you'll be a little more drowsy than normal, but you'll be able to get about your day, and that's called tolerance, okay? So you get to that high level, you watch and wait and you maintain. I also believe at that point that it's really important to think about what you're eating, okay? So I'm a firm believer that cannabis, the majority of cannabises, majority of cancers eat sugar for their energy, okay? And we eat a lot of sugar, we eat a lot of carbohydrates like chips and pasta and noodles and rice, and they all turn into sugar in our body. And that's just plenty of easy food for these cancers to eat, and they love it. That sort of food also, your bowel, your gut bacteria, the wrong ones love all that sort of food as well, so we end up with having things that can lead on to Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, which is the beginning of this story, if we recall. So diet's really important. Now, I think there is one study I've seen for a type of tumour called a BRAF tumour, which is a type of rectal tumour, okay, BRAF, BRAF, and there is one study I've seen which indicates that maybe the ketogenic diet doesn't assist that. In fact, it may make it worse. So to err on the side of caution, if you have got the BRAF gene when you have a cancer of the rectum or the colon, then you should maybe not focus strictly on the ketogenic diet. But to reduce and lower sugars is still very important. If that's not the particular case for you, cut out all sugars. So fruit sugars, carbohydrates, rice, potatoes, pasta, noodles, obviously any fruit juices, any actual sugars, honey, anything sweet, even your big underground tuberous things like potatoes, pumpkins, sweet potatoes, they're all full of sugar as well. Okay, so cut your sugars right down, and you think farmer's meal, meat and 3 veg minus potatoes. So you can have chicken and veg, you can have nuts, you can have seafood, you can have, in my books, dairy. There's lots and lots of things you can eat. It's just that we rely in our world on eating this easy to eat, cheap, convenient stuff called carbohydrates. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's got a really restrictive diet as well because of the Crohn's as well, and ulcerative colitis as well. Paleo is the catchphrase, yeah. Paleo or keto. Yeah. Yeah, paleo just means cutting out those grains and carbs, because our caveman ancestors didn't have much farming happening. So that's where we got the grains from. Yeah. So they're 2 very important things, and also, you can also add in a lot of supplements and more esoteric mushrooms and herbs and stuff for cancer. But the main thing, I think, the really important thing is get rid of those sugars out of your diet, and then strongly treat with cannabis medicines in that situation, if that's your intention. Yes. Congratulations. Yes. And that was probably part of the process that got to the point that ended up in the cancer. So, if you don't change all those factors that lead to the cancer, then it's going to come back no matter what you do. So you have got to make all these lifestyle changes. So unfortunately there's no simple pill we can take for cancer. Yeah, it takes a long time, but that's a big process, so that's a good effort. Very good, yeah. Excellent. Does anyone else have any questions about anything they're interested in, just since we're chatting here, talking today?
Yeah, vitamins, like, is there any good
For just good vitamins generally, or good to support the endocannabinoid system? Okay. Yeah, so the endocannabinoid system, there's lots of talks I'm sure being done about the endocannabinoid system, and my aim today isn't to do a lecture, but we have one in our bodies and it helps us run everything, keeps us in balance, okay? So this endocannabinoid system is really important. It's really important to keep healthy. What the aim of the endocannabinoid system is to secrete our own cannabis in our bodies, our own form of cannabis, and the 2 main molecules we have secreted in our bodies are called anandamide and 2-AG. That's the bliss molecule, okay, anandamide, so that's the original principal endocannabinoid. And it's the same sort of shape as THC, and that's why THC will work in our bodies. We've got cannabis receptors all throughout our bodies. And we want to make sure that we can, to have good endocannabinoid system health, and thus keep your body in good balance and good health, we want to make sure the endocannabinoid system is working as well as possible. So we need to make sure we've got the building blocks of that. So the first place I always start, I'll just move across to see that. The first place I always start with endocannabinoid health is making sure we've got enough omega-3 oils. So omega-3 oils are the most easily digestible form are found as fish oil capsules in our world, okay? You can also get you can also get from MCT oil, or hemp seed oil as a perfect vegetarian balanced option. Okay, flaxseed oil as well, and chia seeds, all contain omega-3 acids, omega-3, 6 and 9, the essential amino acids that we need. When we eat these, they store in our bodies, and they actually interchange with all the cells in our bodies, all the cell membranes. And those particular oils, besides having great health benefits for your heart and all sorts of other things, purely talking about cannabis now, those oils are important for, they are the precursor oils that become our anandamide and our 2-AG. So we make them out of the stores we have in our body, and the stores are in our cell membranes. So regularly taking these oils is important. So I usually say about 3 fish oil capsules a day, or 3 tablespoons of hemp seed oil, or 4, more the merrier with the vegetable varieties really. And then that will be available for our bodies to maximise our production when we need it. Another really important factor to do with this is the cannabis receptors in our bodies. And once again, we make these on demand, and guess where they come from? Out of our cell membranes. So those cell membranes, when we've topped them up with these good oils, as it were, can correctly make these receptors when we need them. It means they're the right shape. It means they work properly when we add in cannabis or our own natural cannabinoids. So that's maximising your endocannabinoid function. So by one simple supplement or vitamin, as we're going to call them, you can boost your endocannabinoid system significantly. And in our world, in this society, you know, our omega-3 levels are way down. Our omega-6 levels are way high. So omega-6 are your standard vegetable oil, sunflower oil, canola oil, all those cheap oils we could buy for $0.50 a litre. Unfortunately, they're really bad for you, and they're really bad for many, many reasons besides the endocannabinoid system, but one particular one is that we don't then get the omega-3 boost that we need. Okay, so nutritionally, we're starved of omega-3s in the West. Okay, so there's other reasons you should take them. There's lots of arguments as to whether or not we should take them regularly, but I'm a firm believer in yes, we should. Rice bran oil won't provide you with the correct omega precursors. It's okay for shallow frying and that sort of thing, but it's not something I will be. It's more on the omega-6 variety. Yeah. Yeah, that's. Yeah, totally. Hemp seed oil, whole hemp seeds, add them to your diet. Try not to heat up the oil because you'll break it down, the goodness of it. But yeah, basically, hemp's a superfood, and our body is, medicine is primarily food first of all. Okay, then we don't get sick. So we're talking prophylactic medicine by eating the right things. So omega-3s, love them, great for your skin, great for your heart, great for your endocannabinoid system as well. I always recommend a basic, or a good quality but basic women's multivitamin or men's multivitamin. Multivitamins contain all the water-soluble things that we need day to day in our body, right? If you have 6 of them, then you'll pee bright yellow, and that's the excess coming out. But if you just have a couple a day, your pee will stay the same, roughly the same colour, and that's the right amount. So they're designed that you take them each day, because if you don't input them every day in your body, they'll be washed out because they're water soluble. So making sure that you've just got all those basic requirements like vitamin C, zinc, iron, magnesium, manganese, all those trace elements and little minerals and nutritional components we need, we add them in daily. That way, there's no stress in our body. If those bits aren't there, our endocannabinoid system has got to say, hey, I need to make this energy for you, but I'm missing out on vitamin C, so I can't do that thing I need to do, so I'm going to have to use this other thing, and that's going to cost me more energy and make more waste. So it's taking up energy of your body, and those problems, as they were, have to be redirected by the endocannabinoid system. So we're giving your endocannabinoid system more energy to do the things you want it to do, rather than just make up for the lack of stuff because we forgot to go to the shops that day. So a good multi like that is a good thing to take, okay? So people, even a lot of GPs and doctors will poo-poo multivitamins. I'm not one of those. I think nutrition's the most important thing, and your basic nutrition is all I really look at. I'm not a nutritionist, I'm a cannabis medicine specialist, but I do look at nutrition because it's important on how you can use my cannabis medicines, and I want them to work as good as possible so that you like me and you send me your friends, okay? So so a good multivitamin is a really good idea as well. What else do I do for people? This is my endocannabinoid boosting regime, okay? So yeah, so if you've given someone too much THC because you need to, or whatever reason, yeah, then you've got to make sure you've got plenty of CBD on board to balance it. If you don't have enough CBD, you can really trigger off bad reactions, bad anxiety. And if you have got someone who's had too much, the important thing is it's just time. Okay, so, and the other thing which is useful is orange juice. or vitamin C seems to help reduce that high feeling a little. And just rest and time and it'll go away. Okay, don't call the ambulance because you'll get to the hospital and you'll be fine and then you'll be embarrassed and then they'll drive you home again, or even worse, they'll just kick you out and you have to make your own way home. You can, there certainly are strong medicines. Paranoid. Exactly, that's panic and that's fear. Okay, so it's a bad trip, I suppose, on cannabis. Yeah, so make sure lots of CBD and don't go straight there. Build up, as I was saying, build up. Yes, you can. Once you scared someone off, they probably don't come back very often. The other thing we can do to nutritionally support our endocannabinoid system is look at our gut health. Okay, so our gut health are our probiotics. These are little bacteria that live in us, and they do lots of things. They protect the gut against damage and inflammation by making a mucus layer, and when they're not there in enough numbers, then they can't do that, and the gut will get inflamed, damage, and that can lead to Crohn's and then even cancer. So we want to look after that, and just living in our world, eating poor foods, antibiotics, pesticides and herbicides get in and on our bodies. These things will knock off the good bacteria that live in us and they can't do that job anymore. So we get gut damage and that leads to inflammation in our body, which leads to a whole chain of negative events. The other thing to do with gut health is mental health. And the endocannabinoid system in particular is very linked with the gut health. And the probiotics actually help us digest our food into the small pieces that become our brain chemicals. So we want to boost them up again. And these are good reasons to boost your probiotics on their own. But when we do this, it's been shown to boost your endocannabinoid production in your body as well, because we have a lot of cannabis receptors along the gut, and there's a very strong association with the immune system. So we're going to stimulate that directly, and CBD is also very good at stimulating that area directly, because that's where we absorb it from. So looking at gut health and your endocannabinoid system, they're intimately linked as well. We can boost our levels again with that. A few other things you can do to increase endocannabinoids in your body are through basic herbs and supplements. So echinacea is something which will boost the endocannabinoid system. Turmeric is something which boosts the endocannabinoid production. Things like ashwagandha as a herb, copal incense as a room incense will increase the endocannabinoid system. Copal incense, C-O-P-A-L. You can use some terpenes. I use terpenes in my clinic all the time, and my favourite one's probably called beta-caryophyllene, if you want to spell it out, C-A-R-O-C-A-R-Y-O-P-H-Y-L-L-E-N-E, I think, caryophyllene. It's found in copaiba oil, it's found in black pepper as well, it's not found in carrots. But it's something which will actually go into our bodies and bind to the cannabis receptors associated with our immune system and inflammatory system and help regulate that system, so great for pain and inflammatory disease. Even dark chocolate has got small amounts of anandamide in it, so that people love chocolate. Maybe it's because of this little touch of anandamide which is found in cocoa. The dark chocolate is stronger because it's just a higher percentage of the cocoa. Cacao is cocoa, that's right, yeah, same thing. Yeah. So there's lots of ways you can boost your endocannabinoid system. And one really, physical therapies, okay, so osteopathy, they actually did a study where they showed that endocannabinoid levels increased after osteopathy sessions. And so similarly, physiotherapy, massage sessions, yoga sessions, exercise, and the endorphin rush is actually an endocannabinoid rush. So all of these things which we associated with other things before is actually the endocannabinoid system, and it being happy and making lots of cannabinoids for us. So there's lots and lots of ways you can improve it. And one big one is mindfulness practice. So meditation brings about the feeling of samadhi and bliss in a lot of meditators. And this is because we're actually stimulating the endocannabinoid system, we're reducing our stress levels, and chemically in our body stress is cortisol and adrenaline. So when we reduce those levels we feel fine. So when we meditate, we're slowing down that sympathetic drive in our bodies and we're increasing the parasympathetic drive, which means we calm down, which means we're ready for bed. That's why cannabis is sleepy. It means we're ready to eat. That's why cannabis increases your appetite. We're not in fight and flight and not in fear and fight and flight, which unfortunately the majority of the world is in these days. Right? Most people are getting around in that state. And we don't want to be there. So that's where cannabis can be a great tool to reduce that hyperexcitability that is just in our world. Okay, everyone's got us in a rush, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to be here right now. But we actually got to slow down, and cannabis I think is a useful tool for that. Bee pollen. Bee pollen's a good thing. You know, it's not something which I use regularly. I think it wouldn't be of any harm at all, but it's not something I'm excluding. If you got your cannabis you got your bees to go on your cannabis plants, that might be an interesting thing. And I've actually seen a study where someone's done that. Yeah, and they've collected, the bees collect the pollen of the pollen of the cannabis. When they get the pollen of the cannabis plant, they pick up the trichomes as well off the flowers, which is where the medicine is. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, just a little bit off
Sure.
this topic. So I'm using THC oil, cannabis CBD oil. I've got osteoarthritis and a double replacement with OA in my salary actually. So I want to
Yeah.
with that, mine's not prescribed.
Yours not prescribed, you just got it from the hemp embassy?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
You can get it prescribed?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Grab one of those. That's
Thank you.
That's my clinic up in Brizzy. We do telehealth all over Australia as well. And just because I'm running short on topics, I'll talk to you about what you're doing with your medicine. So what have you just picked it up today? Have you been using it for a while?
I've been using it for a while. I've been considerable. I've gone off codeine to manage it, and I've switched over. Very, very rarely would I use a Panadol Fort now.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Only when it's extremely radiated, but it's stuff like the whole internal.
Yeah.
I take one, like. So yeah, it was just in regards to having like an actual prescription. I've just been to the driving with THC. So it's not really going to change anything like that. However,
no, it won't save you from the driving rules, unfortunately. But having your approvals in place certainly does look better if you do go to court for driving infringement. And I was talking to someone down in Sydney at a conference recently, a lawyer who's representing a lot of cannabis patients for drug driving, and whenever he's involved, no one's even lost their licence. You know, so you stand in a really good stead. And when I talk to patients in consults about that, I'll always talk about impairment versus actually, which is what we've gone through.
Being present, trace.
Yeah. So, you know, you can be fine to drive. You're probably fine to drive right now, but it may be detectable in your system if you've taken it. And that's
the 2 beers I had before would make me not okay to drive.
That's right, yeah, that's right. Yeah, but in an hour or two, you'll be right from that. Whereas your drops from yesterday can still affect you, and that's highly unfair.
Yeah, it is unfair.
Yeah, so maybe you want to know the ways you can minimise your detection then.
How?
So, when you do a drug test, they do a mouth swab. And if you fail the mouth swab, then they do a blood test, I think, after that. But the mouth swab's the integral part. If you pass the mouth swab, then you passed. So how you take your medicine matters, and how long since you've had it matters. So longer the better, since you've had it, obviously, is better. If you smoke or inhale cannabis, because that's a hot gas, that's your highest chance of a detection, okay? So smoking or vaporising, that's going to give you the most chance. If you're using your oils just with an eyedropper on the tongue, that chance is a lot lower because it's not a hot gas that will impregnate
your mouth. So using under the tongue?
Anywhere in the mouth, yeah.
See, I thought that would because
it's still detectable, but it's not as bad as smoking, okay? Not as detectable as smoking. And then, yeah, that's right. And then what you do is if you just take capsules, so if you get those oils or you buy capsules, or you can get empty gel caps and you put your oils into the capsules and swallow the capsules, well, it's never touched your mouth. So there was a study done by the Lambert Initiative in Sydney a couple of years ago, testing just this out. And if you only use the capsule way, your chance of detection is essentially zero. Cookies will be kind of like oils. It's in your mouth still, it's hitting your tongue. Okay, so if it skips your tongue and your cheeks, and you don't smoke, importantly.
Because there's stone and then there's stone. Do you know, like...
You know if you're not safe to drive. That's right.
Well, yeah, anyone with half, yeah.
Yeah, if you got half a brain, you know.
Yeah.
And so there are ways you can do it. Otherwise, it's just good oral hygiene. If you're not going to go to the capsule level, so brush your teeth and your tongue. You can, before you drive, after you brush your teeth and tongue, if you put a little bit of coconut oil in your mouth and let it sit there for a while, as long as you can, they'll preferentially suck the THC out of your tongue. And we do have some detox mouthwashes which we sell at the clinic, detox, which have worked for some people. Okay, I know people have recently used cannabis beforehand and had a go and put this mouthwash keeping in your console of your car. We've also got chewing gums like that. And if you see the police bus up there, you put that in your mouth, swirl it around, and hope for the best. And spit it out or swallow it just before they swab you without being
Once again,
talking.
it depends on concentration too. Like,
Yeah, and you know, if I wouldn't say anything before they drug tested you. If you failed, I'd be like, I'm actually a medical cannabis patient. Here's my approvals, just so you know. I'd like you to make a statement, something along the lines like, I'm not inebriated at the moment. Do I seem inebriated to you? Do I seem affected by cannabis in any way, or do I seem sober to you? I'd like you to make that statement, you know, verbally, so it's recorded on your camera and so it's recorded on my phone, okay? Because you know, that's one more thing. If you do get to the stage of the court where you've said, well, the officer indicated that I didn't seem impaired at all to him, but I had been detected as having cannabis. That's just going to make it seem better in court. It's not a get out of jail free, but it's just little things to do when you're not thinking.
The idea is to hopefully keep your license.
Yeah, in the heat of the moment, it's easy just to get confused, and you know, but to keep your head together and get those little things, just in case.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pardon? Yes. It's a really common thing in Australia, because you know our livelihoods depend on it. Our jobs, our kids need to get to school, our grandkids need picking up. You know, if we can't drive because we take a medicine, it's unfair, and that's what the whole weekend's about. It's one of the main points of the weekend. It is a fun weekend, but it's also a protest. You know, it's to say, hey, we're not doing anything wrong. We're not harming anyone here. All we want to be able to do is to, you know, look after our bodies. Can you just let us do that, please? If we hurt people, fair enough, but we're not. You know, they've decriminalised, or they haven't done anything. They just changed the rules down in Tassie. They didn't decriminalise or legalise or anything like that. They just said, if you have your medical cannabis certificate in Tasmania and you are not obviously inebriated, so when the cops pull you over and you're not stoned, they let you go. They just say, on your way, and that's sensible. You know, that's very sensible. And there hasn't been any increase that I know of road fatalities or car accidents in Tassie in the last 6 months or a year. So, yeah.
In regard...
Hopefully it spreads to the rest of Australia. There's, I don't know if you know, there's the TV show The Project. They're here filming people around the event, doctors and organisers and patrons, asking them about the drug driving rules, because the public knows about it. The government's aware because they're being lobbied by politicians. There's a small number of politicians, most of whom are talking of being here this weekend, who are letting people know this is a problem, tabling it to Parliament. So hopefully it's just a matter of time before everyone follows suit, because it's a waste of resources. It's just a waste of resources. You know, you're pulling over people that aren't hurting anyone, aren't speeding, aren't dangerous, so why bother? Yeah. Yeah, go for it.
I've been 7 times.
Yeah.
Roadside. Been caught 6 times. Lost my licence 5 times, and I've even been locked up legally and just sitting in the cops. And my driving record, other than that, David Hillman, when I went in front of him, he said I had an impeccable driving record. And I'm one of those people that made him resign. But I don't want to talk about that too much. So
No.
My question to you is about cannabis and teenagers.
Yeah.
Now, in America, I don't know how current this is. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
But they said if you're a 15-year-old and you're smoking cannabis regularly, until proven otherwise, you're going to be treated as if you've got AD, ADHD or PTSD or similar. Now, is that anywhere near anything like that even coming close to happening in Australia?
No, like there's no, the guidance of the psychiatry board, the GP board, the medical board generally on cannabis is fairly sit on the fence, okay? Or sit on the other side of the fence from where we are today. So they say cannabis use at all in children or anyone under the age of 21 is not advised, okay, and we shouldn't do it because of the unknown health consequences. I think personally, you know, THC use in particular in children and minors is not something that I would recommend unless there was a reason medically that I was doing it. The medical reason may be ASD or ADHD or any number of things, but it's certainly something where I would err on the side of caution and start with a CBD heavy treatment. So a full spectrum CBD is the first place to start with any teenager, even if they're just using pot recreationally, if that's a question.
What about one-to-one?
One-to-one is better than none-to-one, okay? Because what happens, and this is a really important thing, when we use THC, and these studies have really only been done on animals, but the results of them I see all the time in the clinic and in people, all right? So they got these rats and they gave them lots of THC. And then they chopped their brain in half and had a look at the area, the cells in the hippocampus, in the memory centre of the brain, the memory and emotion centre. And they saw physical changes in those cells under the microscope that resemble conditions like paranoia, bipolar, manic depressive, even schizophrenia. So psychotic conditions, mental health conditions. And then they got another lot of rats and they gave them the same amount of THC but they gave them CBD to balance it, like one-to-one. And guess what? Those changes didn't occur in those rats. Okay, those negative changes didn't occur. So that's really positive because it means that, and I think what's happened is when we've grown this plant to be stronger and stronger over the years, and I know there's a lot of good growers around here, okay? That's been at the expense of CBD, because when you look at the growth cascade, and I know you like this stuff, so when you look at the growth cascade and when you pick it and the maturity of the plant, if you're forcing or choosing genetics that move towards high THC, you're going to get a maximum THC level of say 28 to 30% these days, kind of max, even if you're really good, alright? So that's your max THC level. And yet, if you're looking at all the balanced flowers that are available to me anyway, you look at your balanced flowers, you never see above a 14-14 or a 12-12 or a 10-10. So, in that chemical cascade between CBG to THC and everything else dropping off in between in that evolutionary growth cycle, you know, the more you push it into the THC mode, the less CBD you're going to get. So even if we're choosing those genetics to breed in, it's impossible, I dare you to, grow a 25, please do, and tell me what you've done, and give me some to dispense to people, but a 25 flower, okay? You're not going to get it. And that's because of the way that's because of the nature of the plant. And so we've bred THC in, and we've got great THC now at the expense of CBD. And we're seeing that, you know, the medical community, the hemp embassy, we put pressure on CBD because CBD is what the plant meant to have originally. So if you have adequate CBD in your body, you can essentially use cannabis safely and well for your whole life. But if you don't have that CBD, I see it in the clinic all the time, people just getting more and more edgy, more anxious, more paranoid, and that's not a good state to be in, you know? Yeah.
Firstly, THC, from my understanding, is the plant's self-defense mechanism, and grows like CBG. I've grown it.
Yeah.
Legally, I'm a licensed grower, just to be clear. I've actually grown it. I actually think it's quite amazing. I've actually sampled it out of wanting to know what it is like, and it's quite a different feeling. It's quite euphoric, and it doesn't have even the CBD or the THC effects.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually like Forbes said, it's a Rolls Royce, it's cannabinoids.
Yeah.
I think it's actually got a really lot of potential, especially if you're able to work, take it from CBG to where you want to get
100%. You know, if you look at this festival and you look at THC as the headline talker, you know, whoever that is, and you look at all the other talkers and all the other panels and all the other chats like this, well, they're all really important too. We all need to know what the head dude's telling us about, because that's the basic stuff. But then there's other things that interest everyone individually, and then that's what we're talking about: minor cannabinoid levels. We're talking about the terpenes. We're talking about your linalols and your pinene and your caryophyllates. All these things that are important. They're not the main one, but the main one wouldn't have a job without little ones, and little ones wouldn't have a job without the main one.
Yeah,
so that's why whole plant medicine is really important too.
Yeah, I'm huge on that. I first stood up as Medications maybe 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I basically spoke about terpenes and the different ways of how you can enhance your medicine by adding phytocannabinoids with them to your medicines to enhance those.
And essentially that's how good you are growing those plants, nurturing those plants and selecting those genetics. And
understanding what those terpenes are for. Like, right now in Australia, I think we are 20 years behind America on our terpenes.
yeah, the States, they're really into it. You know, they have been growing a lot more intensively for the last 20-30 years, so we are a bit behind. You know, even the companies in Australia, when I see the imported flower versus the locally grown flower, the locally grown flower is really getting to a really good quality, but it's still not quite at the top level. And that will happen, you know, that's just literally, well, hey, sorry guys, we just built our facility, we're only on our 6th cycle, or maybe by now, you know, 8th cycle maybe by now. So the Australian industry is scaling up, you know, and scaling up as well, because it's easy and possible to grow one plant amazingly, but if you want to do that for 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 plants and reproduce that so I can give all the patients what you said is on the packet, that's the hard part. And maintaining it as you grow is the hard part. Yeah.
Well, that's where good genetics and buying from a reputable supplier is really important.
100%, yeah.
Genetics is genetics, and really, I mean, what it comes down to, how good of a grower you are.
You can have the best genetics and grow poorly,
yeah,
100%.
The volume you get from the crop is more defines a grower, I think, more so than the genetics. So if you're a good grower, you can grow anything good. If you're a bad grower, you can grow great crap.
Exactly.
But I think when we come to the Australian market, well, I've spent a lot of time looking into this. The Australian market is okay. The price of legal cannabis in this country is more expensive than black market. Now, black market cannabis, those people are risking going to jail, losing their livelihoods, and potentially losing their family members if they've got children in their care. Now, those people there, they're locked out of the industry, and know some of them are the greatest growers in Australia. And
yeah, well, you're actually not locked out of the industry. In fact, they've made from the start, and I've been involved before it became legalised. I was involved in some of the panels, you know, early on, where they were like literally discussing and directions, what we're going to do with this, you know, at an administrative level. And one thing that is not stipulated, in fact is stipulated the other way, is that if you have got a conviction for cannabis, that will not stop you from being involved in the industry.
Yeah, I remember that in 2016.
Yeah.
I was at the first initial meeting.
Yes.
And they had I told the truth, and they had a copper out beside the door when I rocked up, so I knew he was pissed off. Which was obviously because I was the only one who was there from this side of the fence.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the right way to go about it, you know. But if you were to say be offered a job as the head grower from Company X, you could take that job. They would do a criminal check on you, and it would say, "Yep, okay, busted for pot. That's okay. You can still get the job. That's not going to keep you out of the job."
Yeah, but you can't, as a lot of people I'm talking about, if they wanted to actually have their own farm, they can't, because you cannot have any. If you've got a criminal convictions on certain things.
Yeah, having your own farm is a different thing at the moment, but I can see in the future, you know, there'll be ways in which we'll be able to form co-ops, and actually that's something that I'm really interested in, is because I live in this area and I know that there's a lot of excellent growers, and I know there's a lot of good product comes out of this country. What I'd like to do, when you go to get a cannabis license, it does cost you a lot of money.
12 grand.
Well, that's
$8,000.
but that's only the start. Okay, that's your application fee. All right, the actual cost of it is more like, you know, well in excess of $2 million to get up a grow. By the time you've, you know, got your security, you've got your facility, you pay for all your lights, you pay for your staff, all these things. So, but there'll be ways around it. We just have to let the legalisation continue. One of my personal pet projects is in the back of my mind, and always has been, is to actually form a co-op of Northern Rivers growers, where we can actually take in your crop by crop, assess, assay it, find out exactly what's in it, look at the quality, look at the consistency of the terpene profile, the CBTHC, and then considering it's up to the standards that we require, buy that product and convert it into medicinal cannabis, convert it into oils through accredited extractors and packages. Because one of the big things in the legalized cannabis industry is that we have to uphold the pharmaceutical laws. So all the medicines have to be as clean, as pure as aspirin, as any medicine you can buy in the pharmacy. So you can't go to a pharmacy and if you get something, you don't expect that it's going to make you sick, or potentially you're going to get impurities in that medicine. You expect it to be clean and safe for you. This is the same thing that we have to do in the legal medical market, and that's one of the main differences in cost, is having to comply with these things. So, you know, that's something that is not impossible. It's just how you approach the laws. So if you take a tank is charging at you and you run head on against that tank, you're going to get squashed. But that's not the best and smartest way to do it. Sometimes it's better to maybe jump to the side, climb up the back and drop something down the back of that tank. Don't go head on against a force you can't stop. Rather, use the skills that you have, coordinate with people of like mind, and maybe have other skills like maybe me, or maybe David Hilpern as a lawyer, or any of these other politicians. So we've got a political party in this town as well. And rather than try and beat the tank, just try to find a different pathway for that tank so it doesn't annoy us anymore. We can get on with it. So it's just a perspective change, I think.
See, sorry, I'll just go one last point and then I'll shut up.
That's all right.
I actually think by having a closed market, the quality control is lower. I've seen a lot of medical cannabis over this weekend, and the stuff that I'm buying from the green market or grey market, if you want to call it that, is far superior. Now, I mean, for me myself, I think if we open up the market, that quality control would actually go through the roof, because only the best of the best will get brought.
Oh, yes.
And I think that one of these companies that we've done recently right now would actually fall to the side, because there's a lot of big growers out there that want to.
Yeah, there are a lot of good quality out there as well, and I agree with you. And there are some medicines which I think aren't the best quality on the market. There are some very good medicines as well, I know, that I can get my hands on. So yeah, I want it to open up, I agree. You know, I think it's a good thing, and I think it will open up in two ways. It'll open up recreationally and it'll open up medicinally. It's just, have to wait and see. Right? We're building the story, you know. So for instance, you know, we're not fighting, we're having a great conversation, all right? You know, I'm aware of that, and I'm appreciative of your conversation. And what we want to do is really work together. You know, that's the key. How much does that cost per ounce on the street at the moment?
Depending,
Either.
I can give you both prices.
Yeah. What's the ounce price on high THC quality flower?
The industrial price of cannabis is $1 a gram if you buy it by the kilo. Otherwise, it's about $30 to $50 an ounce. That's what I don't sell it like that, but that's what I know the price to be.
Yeah.
Now, for high quality cannabis, we're talking high quality.
Yeah, top quality.
Top quality, we're looking anywhere from about $300 up to $400. Now,
So actually,
400 is a really high price, but if you're paying that, you're actually getting the best of the absolute best.
if I mean, you've obviously got good connections as well, but you know those pricings, they're not that far off what we do now. You know, so we have $350 for 30 grams is probably the cheapest. Average pricing is probably more than that, 400. Okay, some go a little higher. I'm talking about high THC right now. CBD is more retail pricing about $13 to $14 a gram for CBD flower. Okay.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah, that's high quality CBD flower, and that's and then your THC is in that 350 to 450 range. So they're getting pretty close. and the quality is pretty good. I know that it's not all perfect, but it's a growing industry.
I think Tasmanian Botanicals is actually a really big company and always wanting to look for.
They have got some nice flour,
Yeah,
yeah.
actually they're quite affordable from what I've seen.
Yeah, they have got some nice flour. They're good. Yes.
So just in regards to what you said about a co-op,
Yes.
I know in other parts of the world, in other industries, that works quite well. And
Yeah.
that's how business...
Down Norco, the milk manufacturer works.
Yeah, and businesses in Europe, they do the same thing in other...
That's right.
Is it just this location, climate, everything that you know it would work well if it was approved?
I think, without giving away all my ideas, I suppose, I think it would work very well. And I think it would work from many sources. But I'd say you wouldn't take all the sources that get offered to you. You know, you'd test every source. You'd have to test every source. The only problem is with this is producing something which is reliably the same. So you would, at the moment when you brand a medicine, it has to stay the same within a certain percentage, very close percentage. Otherwise, it has to be. It's a new medicine. It has to be resubmitted. Yeah, batch numbers, yeah. So that'd be one of the things, but as long as it's something that can be brought around, like so you would say, well, this particular type of medicine which this company is making is batch specific, and this batch is this strong, it would have to be called a different name, you know. But that's details, you know. The concept, legally, I believe we will be able to do it. Whether how much it would cost to do it, you know, and how much organisation and also wanting to be able to continue to do it regularly and be able to continue, that's important. Yeah. There's a Northern Ruther's Hemp Co-op, that's right, yeah, and that'll be a great source for your CBD, wouldn't it? Yeah, CBD oils, yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? No? Alright. I personally, at Plant Med, we focus against isolates, okay, so we really focus on whole plant. We do have access to isolates if people require them, but it's a very small number of people. It's people that work in the mines or a bus driver or... Well, they just always get drug tested, so it's going to show off THC at any time, so, and they'll lose their job. So that CBD is not tested for, so you can take CBD, it doesn't impair you either. So yeah, you can take your CBD, but you can't take a full spectrum CBD, say, because it may have 2 or 3% THC in it.
Depends what the carrier is of the CBD. If it's in a water soluble, it's stomach, depending on the pH of the